We live in a time of political unrest, demonstrations, protests. How does music fit into such conflict? We think of it as enchanting, Orpheus and his lyre. We think of it as seductive and erotic in countless serenades and arias, love songs. There is dance music. There is mystical music, music of the spheres. Of course, liturgical music. But how does it function as a political tool? In the autumn of 1831, the young Frédéric Chopin is on his way from his hometown in Poland to Paris, where he would spend the rest of his short life. En route, while in Germany, he learns that the Russian army conquered Warsaw and that there is no more Poland. That night, a piece of music is conceived that expresses his fury, his despair, a frightening outburst of violent emotions. It will become famous as a revolutionary etude and will serve as the unofficial anthem for the Free Poland movement. Not exactly music to soothe the savage breast, quite the opposite. And the pianist could use a haircut. Many operas are the product of their zeitgeist, reflecting the political atmosphere of the day, but also contributing to it. Take The Marriage of Figaro as an example. In the disguise of a light comic opera, Mozart is poking fun at the stupidity and the abuse of the aristocracy. The Count is trying to reinstate the old feudal custom of the right of the first night and expects to take Susanna to bed on the night of her wedding to Figaro. Figaro gets wind of it and sings, "Si vuol ballare, signor Contino." Si vuol ballare, if you want to dance, my little count, I will play the music. And the entire opera then tells us how two servants make a fool of their master and get their way. Adorable on the surface, but revolutionary in content. The opera was premiered in 1786, and the rumblings of the French Revolution are felt throughout Europe. The librettist Da Ponte had to change a few incendiary sentences before getting a clearance from the censor. Repressive regimes of all flavors were always aware of the power of music and kept a watchful eye and ear on composers and musicians. The Chinese Cultural Revolution banned Western music altogether. It was a crime. If you saw the Red Violin, you remember how horrifically destructive this period was in Chinese history. The same fanatic prohibition continues today among the Taliban and Islamic extremists. They consider Western music sinful and dangerous. I would argue that it was jazz that brought down the Berlin Wall. You can imagine what this forbidden, free and spontaneous art form represented to young people under Soviet repression. It penetrated unstoppable and made irreparable cracks in the wall and in the system, like the walls of Jericho that symbolically crumbled to the sound of music. And the walls came tumbling down. A Russian composer who lived in the very jaws of Stalinist terror was Dmitri Shostakovich. A casual comment could cost a person his life or exile to the gulags. So a tormented man is sending coded messages to the world through his music. Here's one or two examples. His second trio opens with a nostalgic Russian tune, but right away you know that something is seriously wrong, that the world order has gone topsy-turvy. The cello opens very high up on top, and the violin enters underneath. An eerie feeling of looking at things upside down. The second movement is scherzo, which in Italian means joke. This one, however, is anything but. It's danse macabre. It's the dance of death. The metronome markings are intentionally too fast for the music. There is violence, convulsion, and shreds of a waltz tossed about, shards of a broken world. If the musicians in the video behave as if they've gone berserk, they are responding to the insane frenzy of the music. Because of time limitation, we cannot listen to the rest of the piece, but all four movements are an indictment. They bear witness to a political nightmare. On one of my trips to China, I gave a masterclass on this piece and asked the dean if I could tell the students about the background, which is essential for the correct interpretation of the music. And he said, "You can say anything you wish about Stalin, but do not talk about Mao." The flag is a piece of cloth with a graphic design. Yet it is imbued with tremendous emotions and patriotic fervor. People will risk their lives to protect it. The same is true of national anthems. They may have little musical merit, but what they represent far exceeds any tune. They have a sacred, iconic status. In the movie Casablanca, two such songs are dueling with one another. One representing Nazi tyranny, Die Vaterland. The other stands for Liberté, Égalité, Fraternité, La Marseillaise.
Are you enough of a businessman to appreciate an offer of 100,000 francs?
I appreciate it, but I don't accept it.
I'll raise it to 200,000.
My friend, you could make it 1,000,000 francs at 3. My answer would still be the same.
There must be some reason why you won't let me have them.
There is. I suggest that you ask your wife.
I beg your pardon?
I said, ask your wife.
My wife?
Yes.
Wait.
Satire and parody are sharp, powerful tools, very effective. In Goethe's Faust, Mephistopheles sings a song in a tavern about a king who lavishes affection on a flea. Corruption, nepotism, absurd stupidity are all disguised, camouflaged in zany humor. In 1879, Mussorgsky used a Russian translation of this song and wrote an amazing piece of music. He's a bit ahead of the Bolshevik Revolution, but you can see where the winds are blowing. There was a king who had a large flea. He loved it as dearly as his own son. He called his tailor. "Here, make robes for this night and a pair of trousers." Now the flea was clothed in silk and satins and a cross for distinguished service. Straight away he became a minister and wore a large star. And his brothers and sisters too could load it at the court, and you can imagine the rest, no scratching allowed. The word in Russian for a flea is blacha. Let's enjoy this amazing piece of music and allow it to go on as long as time permits. Thank you.
Placha.